Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Comments and questions from the public? Chrissy?
I have just a comment because I know you're talking about the budget. Would you prefer me to wait until you're actually talking about the budget?
No, go ahead now, and then we'll probably come back to it.
Okay. So I'm here, and Dan and Reg may have seen, I sent them an email earlier today. I just wanted to come and speak out on behalf of my husband and myself in support.
I did not see it, so just.
Okay. You have an email from me.
Thank you.
And it is in support of the board considering budgeting for a gifted and talented coordinator for the next school year. And I wanted to come now while you're talking about that budget. I know this is a major goal for the board. I really appreciate that. As a parent of a GT student, but also just as a community member, I think it's really important that we have a healthy, thriving school that meets everybody's needs. And I think we have a lot of really, really smart and gifted kids at this school, and that's a really heavy lift to put on the shoulders of the administration, like Shelley, on Dawn, and they've really done a great job this year so far with providing things, at least for my own child, that's what I can speak to. But I know it's a lot of work, and there are certain things that just aren't always going as smoothly or as quickly as I'm sure they would like to see, and I think having a coordinator would really, really help with that and would ease a lot of the burden off of them. Not to say that it is a burden, but take some of that off of their plate and put it on somebody's plate who's specifically trained to do that sort of work and offer that programming and support the whole staff in helping those kids. So I'm speaking on behalf of that, and he'll probably follow up with more comments.
Sure.
Thank you. And Chrissy, we are going to discuss that later. So
Great.
We're not just tabling your comments.
Yep, I'll hang out.
We're on the questions and comments from the public.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I'm here. I saw that you guys were discussing the budgetary constraints or budget for possibly getting a gifted and talented coordinator, and I think that should be looked at very thoughtfully and heavily, and we need something. So.
Thank you.
He offers a GT.
Yes.
Even if I didn't, I
It's a
would
relevant
still
question
use
at this point. Do you guys have a vision as to whether that is a full-time position or a part-time position? If part-time, how part-time?
I would probably defer to Shelley on that. I mean, I only know of a handful of GT kids, but I know that, you know, part of what I would love to see happening is the school looking at the way that GT kids are identified. I think that there are probably more kids here who would really benefit from a coordinator than might pass the test, which is currently, as far as I can tell, the only thing that gets you in or out. So I think a full-time would be really beneficial, because regardless of whether a kid qualifies for GT, you have some really high flyers. We're seeing that right now with Odyssey of the Mind. There are several kids who are not GT who are participating in Odyssey of the Mind, and they're having a really wonderful time, and I think it's a really important creative outlet for them that a GT coordinator who is full-time might be able to provide some little extra things for those kids who are really seeking that above and beyond academic, outside the box, creative pursuit. And it would really, I think, help the teachers too, because the teachers have such a heavy lift that they have to do. And it's so hard to span, you know, all of the needs and you know, the range of learning. And having a really solid GT coordinator who was in the building the whole day, I think it would only be beneficial for the entire school.
I think it's really helpful for the teachers in general, because you take one subset of the school population and you give them a coordinator. Take another subset and give them a coordinator. And you let the teacher, you know, have the, you know, students like myself who are good students, and they don't have to worry about as much on the two spectrums, I guess you could say. And that's my thought. Anyway. We spend a lot on one side, we don't spend a lot on the other side.
And that is one of the biggest reasons that we put that as a goal for this year. And Nina and Joe, I know, they're heading up our committee, and I know they have a lot to add when we get to that part of the budget, which will be fairly soon.
Right.
We left on page 9, but I would like to go back to page 8 because I had a note in there that we were going to have math curriculum possible number for 118, which is today.
Not for live.
No,
Well, it could
which is
be.
today.
It could happen.
January 18th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so in front of you is my yearly budget considerations, I don't know, title for you, I guess. So there's lots of things to think about, but math in particular, that is the last few pages. So you can start at the end and go to where it starts, which I think is about 3 pages long. If you want to just go to what is the number we should put in the budget, it's the first year it would cost $29,000, well, $29,262.94. There are already some pieces of that, which as you kind of dive into here, that are offset by ESSER funding. I still feel like which is why I didn't put it into this budget. I still feel like our year 1 costs should, at least that should come from our ESSER funding, and perhaps our ongoing consumables costs should come out of our regular budget. So let's see. So the second to last page, there's the row that is third from the bottom. It says total year 1 costs. So that's the startup costs.
Wait, where are you?
Oh, sorry.
I'm having trouble.
Go on.
Second to
It
last.
didn't print the way it looks on my screen, so just kidding.
Oh, okay.
So it's
Just
actually your
messing with
last page.
Okay.
Yeah.
This,
Okay.
I will look at what I printed instead of what's on the screen.
Good, you just went through that with me. Thank you very much.
I will ignore that.
Just above waggle map.
Yes, just above waggle map, and that's something that comes out of ESSER funding already.
Oh.
So, let's see, so just sort of the startup costs are ranging, for those of you in the audience, they're ranging from, and it's based on the number of students in the classroom, as low as about 1,300 to as high as about 3,000. And then yearly, it is about $800 per homeroom. So right now in our budget, we're budgeting around $3,500 for consumables for Math and Focus. That's what we've got right now. I took it out of here because I knew we would have this discussion, but that's why the line 109 in the budget is, under what it was last year and then over. So I guess what I would say is, I know you have I know you have a lot of ideas of what you want to do with the ESSER money, and it's already been allocated. So we did not put math in there. So now knowing that it's going to cost $29,000, I thought you might want to have a conversation about where you want all of the money to come from.
But for our purposes tonight,
Yeah.
you're proposing $29,262.94
Yep.
in this budget, or from somewhere.
Yes.
But that's the cost.
That's the
for
cost.
next year.
Mhm.
I'm not sure how everyone else thinks, but I would like to put it in the budget, kind of see where we are, knowing that we might need to reallocate some of the ESSER money at some point. But I don't know what you think.
I try very hard to look at the ESSER money as the candy jar for whatever we want. want, I think we should be able to draw a really crisp, clear line between the pandemic and what we're using ESSER funds for. Like, the pandemic caused us to need this money. So I would prefer to put it in the regular budget and ride that out for a while anyway. Anybody else?
Okay. We've been talking about this for
Yeah.
quite a long time.
A couple of years, at least. Well,
It's overdue.
even longer. Those little conversations. You and me. Yes.
Formally, for over a
Yes,
year. So.
Yes. Okay. And also in line 112 on page 8, we were talking about a rationale, and is that part of what?
Sorry, where?
Line 112?
Yes.
Storage.
Yep,
unit.
those
So
are,
in
that's all
here
it
too.
is. Yep.
Okay, all right, so we don't really need to go over that again. So I would say let's start on page 9, is that all right with everyone?
So we're gonna add the 29,000 for version 3.
Yes.
Okay.
Adding the 29,000 for version 3 for math. What's up? No, I'm sorry. On 109, Reg is just clarifying our math discussion.
Okay.
And 112 is, we were looking for a rationale, and that's in what Shelley just passed out. So I don't think we need to discuss that right now anymore. Unless anybody's really dying to. Okay, on page 9. We know that in 123, line 124, and line 125, the figures are not firm yet, so they will.
Sealy, or actually not Sealy, reps from GSA,
Jim?
gave us like 96 or 94 or 95. Was their estimate?
Of students, current students, yes, and I didn't know where
I
that,
didn't know whether that was for next year, or the current year.
And we had been using a higher number, weren't we?
Yes.
We have about 10 higher than that here.
well, we have 120.5 total, but we have 106.
Yeah.
It is 95 this year, but it'll go up, is that what the issue is?
I just wondered about that.
There's a big 8th grade class of about 31.
Yeah.
It's gonna be going into high school, and then we're graduating about 24. So it's kind of a net gain of about 7 high schoolers next year.
So it was probably they were giving us the current year, not their guess as to next year.
Right. Which makes the whole figure look better. We use current figures. So, and now we're on gifted and talented. There it is. Joe, do you want to start?
When I was running the Gifted and Talented program at Surrey, which is a much smaller school than this, some years I was budgeted at 2.5 time, and sometimes it was 2 days a week, 2/5 position, and I was very busy. But it was because we had a focus on kind of democratizing the program and making a lot of classroom experiences for the entire classes, both enriching for all the kids in the class, but also as a kind of an ongoing screening method to see who might be just really able to understand, say, the science chapter on electricity or something, and might be able to work at a faster pace and go into more depth in the subject and apply their knowledge more. And so what we tried to do was work with entire classrooms sometimes instead of only with identified GT kids. And the other another way that I used my time quite a bit was differentiating curriculum on behalf of the teachers. So, you know, like taking a science, a social studies book and creating differentiated lessons, so that instead of just going at a faster pace, the identified gifted and talented kids could go into more depth and do a lot more by applying what they were learning in that. But those materials were in the classroom and available for any student in the room who tested out of that particular, you know, chapter or unit or whatever it was. So I guess I definitely am advocating for a coordinator, and I think in a way, whether we need a full-time person or a half-time person would be how much we would like to have that coordinator do in terms of assisting the teachers and even going into the classroom sometimes with special lessons and that kind of thing. Because if we wanted to do that, I think we would need a full-time person given our population.
And are they actually teaching students and doing a full out teaching?
Yes, so yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, I assumed that was obvious, but it isn't, so thank you.
And they would run the GT meetings?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so they're-
and they do, you know, they deal with the screening and the identifying, and with coordinating the entire program, you know, the pull-out lessons, the trips, but then also, as I said, creating differentiated materials to be used in the classroom by anybody who was ready to move it, you know, at that pace. So yeah, there was a pull-out program when it was appropriate. I guess what we tried to do was handle as much as possible through differentiation within the classroom and use pull-out when that was called for. So, you know, it took some planning, it took some time.
So, Joe, will you talk a bit about your process with Nina and the committee? Because I think that I'm feeling that we need to put something in the budget, but it may not stay exactly that way based on the outcome and the data that you collect, but I might be wrong about that.
Yeah, so, do you wanna talk about that?
Yeah, so it feels a little bit like the timing is flipped of what it ideally would look like. I feel like if we have, you know, if the plan, or I assume we're planning, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, is to like talk to stakeholders like parents and teachers and community members, and also I would like to look at other GT programs that have been successful in other schools close by. I know that like obviously Blue Hill is a specific community, so we'd have to tinker a bit. And ideally bring all that information and create a program, have Joe and I propose ultimately a program to the board that would be approved. So it would be ideal, I think, to budget for it, but obviously I'm also new to this budgeting process also. So it seems like it would be wise to budget for it ahead of time. And then obviously we might need to adjust as we go.
So for those of you who don't know, we're gonna have listening sessions with various stakeholder groups, students, parents, and other community members, teachers, and we're gonna try to hold those when it's a convenient time for that particular group, so right after school for the teachers, and with any luck, during school to talk to students. And yeah, we want to, as Nina said, look at other programs that are working, talk to other GT coordinators, and to Maine Educators of the Gifted and Talented, which is an organization in the state, and to the Department of Ed, and ask what are the current best practices, and then so between what the stakeholders say and what the DOA and Maine Educators of Gifted and Talented say, and what we're learning from other gifted educators, then the committee will come with a recommendation to the board of what a program might look like.
Maybe a couple.
Possibly,
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
Right. I mean, this is
could be done on this scale or on this scale or.
When you gather information in hopes of forming a plan using that, being informed by that information, you kind of have to leave yourself open for a.
It does seem to me that with the percentage, isn't it like 5%? What was the percentage?
Yeah, 5% is what it states
So
in the.
that, I mean, that turns out to so many students that it seems like a full-time position would be warranted.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, it's my opinion that if we put in a full-time teacher with benefits and supply money, we've done the most we could probably do in a year.
Hmm.
That we can always scale back from here, but if we don't put in something, it doesn't matter what your proposal is. We're gonna have money for it.
I think the public perception is that this is kind of an elitist idea, and by keeping it in the classroom as much as possible and opening it up to children who happen to be able to really understand a particular unit that they're working on, and let them, you know, go to town on, go farther with that material, it's more beneficial to everybody. And if the coordinator can take some of the weight for having to differentiate curriculum off of the teachers, it's going to benefit the teachers a lot too. It's an awful lot to ask to teach such a wide spectrum of abilities.
And just in a practical sense, I would have thought that we might, assuming that something goes through, gets into the budget, we might have a better chance at hiring a full-time
That's probably
G&T
true.
person than a part-time G&T.
That's generally true.
I'm all for putting something in the budget we have a chance of getting. Something that makes us feel good, but is impractical.
It also seems wise to me to budget for bigger and then
I'd also like to say that as a former teacher, having a GT person helps all the kids because it allows the classroom teacher to have a resource for those particular kids as we have for other particular kids. And so everybody benefits because as a teacher you have more time to spend with those who don't have that resource. And I think that that's important too.
On Friday at our in-service day, just to piggyback on that, Dawn was discussing the outline of how we do GT here essentially and all across the union. And somebody asked, so at the meeting, when you identify the student and they come up with a plan, who's responsible for implementing the plan and coming up with the materials? And we were like, you are, teacher. I mean, that's who has to do it.
Right.
And I think, you know, this one, we've sort of thought about this for a while because we have small class sizes, we haven't really done it. But I do think this is a great time, personally. And one thing to think about is those numbers, right? So it's not just the people who are identified now, and I think we're doing a better job 5th through 8th grade of identifying. I think we could improve, and that's academics. I think we can certainly improve in identifying the VPA population and also probably our K4 kiddos. But if we really did identify 5%, that's academic and 5% of visual performing arts. So we really are talking about 15 to 30 students. And so when we think about special education, each special education teacher has a caseload of around 15 students, if that. So I really think that's an appropriate, an appropriate use of a person. They would do the same types of things that a special education teacher would do. I think that's a piece that Dawn's been saying it really needs to come off of her plate, in particular for BHCS, because there are just too many kids. She just doesn't have time to run all of those meetings. And so while it might need an administrator, we do have 2 administrators here, which I think is great. This person could be responsible for running the meeting just like a special ed teacher does. An administrator attends the meeting versus running the meeting and coming up with all the plans ahead of time and working out who's going to say what we can actually provide. And that person is able to go around and coordinate with everybody else, follow through to make sure that it's happening, and meeting with teachers. So I think as you're talking about it, I can even visualize, even more how that person would be spent. They certainly wouldn't be wasting any time.
No,
I
I
don't
don't
think there's any
so.
time they're gonna be sitting around.
If
bored.
we had a full-time person, that person could teach directly, and then could also, shore up what's happening in the classrooms and do all that other more administrative level stuff.
And we'll figure out which bathroom they'll use for an office.
I know, there is always the space issue.
Yeah.
I just would say as a parent, I would love to be able to have that person that I knew I could just reach out to with a question or concern. I mean, I reached out to Shelley yesterday about a concern I had with the GT thing, and I wouldn't even be surprised if she hasn't even read it yet, because I know what her inbox looks like. And I cringe every time I have to email her or something like that. And so I would feel like I was able to advocate for my kid without being as much of a pain in the butt if I knew that there was that teacher there at the school. And I'm not afraid to be a pain in the butt, as you all know, when I feel like I really need to. But it would feel like a much friendlier and more pleasant relationship. And I also really appreciate you bringing up kids who aren't just like math and science GT, because right now that seems like what the test really focuses on. And I know there are so many other kids who are just like amazing, bright, shining stars who would benefit so much from more like English language arts, visual stuff. I just think it would be such a boon for this school to have that and have such a rocking program. It would really be incredible.
So, what do we want to put in the budget? Masters plus 5 years experience, 2-person package for benefits is what we usually put in when we're creating a position.
And then some supplies,
Supplies, yep.
and maybe, like.
There's already supplies in there, right?
Yeah, I think we've got something to do.
There's
There are
$1,000 of supplies. So,
And is that, would that be stuff that Dawn was counting on? Would that be money that Dawn was counting on being able to use?
yeah, plus it's startups, so we probably need more than that. Yes, but it wouldn't be Dawn anymore. If we have a new person, she wouldn't be spending that money, this person would
Okay,
be spending.
that's,
But
I'm trying to figure
yeah.
out, like, what happens with Dawn's program if we hire a coordinator. We just kind of,
Person takes it over.
it takes it over.
Yeah.
Okay.
One would
She'd
still
have to
serve
put it, yeah.
kind of the other 4 schools as the GT coordinator, but
And I would hope that Dawn would serve as someone to go to for this coordinator?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Hold on, be mad at us.
I think
No.
she'd be.
She would be so happy.
Take her $1,000.
And I also have to say, I really hope that if we do hire someone, they will coordinate with Dawn and the other schools, because I think that's an important part of any GT program, is if you can reach out and let those kids get out there and experience other kids who are in other schools who have the same talents or similar talents. I think that's
Kenny has done that with me at Little Heritage Trust with other GT art kids on the peninsula.
Yep.
And it was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Good for their egos.
Yeah, and that actually was
You
part
aren't
of
the
Dawn's
only
program.
one.
Yeah, but that actually was part of Dawn's program. That's where that all,
That's great.
so I think that's, I don't want to lose that part. So when we do a job description, we'll have to put something in there.
So what is the level, what is masters plus 5 years in Benny's?
More than one.
Yeah. I would say we could look at the 2 vacancies, but there's no number in there. So we'd have to look it up.
Oh, okay.
I'm guessing around 50,000.
Plus Betty's.
Yep. 70, 60, 55.
For the college.
Yep, exactly.
That's gonna be at least 75.
So are we looking at instructional supplies and thinking it should be more than 1,000.
Unless Dawn has some, a grant somewhere that can offset that, I think it's gotta be at least through, this person has no classroom, so. And we've already accounted for $1,000 with the things on the next page. They have no pencils, it's a lot of pencils, I know, but, they have no things.
So should we make it 3,000 to start with?
Sounds good.
Silence, yes?
Well,
Yeah.
we're just shooting in the dark right now,
Yeah,
right?
once I have no idea what I'm doing.
But I also
Speaking of that, and didn't say anything. That was the for once part.
but I do think in setting up a classroom, of course, we don't know where the classroom will be, but definitely if you're walking into a classroom with no pencils or whatever.
I'm pretty sure I know what it's gonna be.
Yeah, well, okay, but yes. Can you share where you think it
I
might be?
think it's probably gonna go in the OT room. I don't know where OT is gonna go, but that's okay.
Yeah, but that's,
I think it'll probably go there. That seems to be, I think that would be a good spot.
yeah, I think so too. But still, I would also say that supplies, we also probably ought to think about maybe a little bit for furniture.
Right, and maybe it should just, we have to split that, we have to split those up to budget, I guess.
Geez, I used to have to gypsy around whatever,
I know.
that's not good anymore. I used to have to go around to whatever classrooms were used at that moment.
And steal stuff.
I think 3,000.
No, use
can
space.
include furniture, I mean, we've got stuff, so maybe we need to, I don't know how we should split it, but let's go 2,500 of supplies and 500 of furniture. Is that okay? It'll be about that, I think.
Sounds cool.
What line is furniture?
We're adding it.
Yeah,
There
we're
is
adding
one.
Like we're adding this, the salary and all of that goes with it. Like retirement.
Do we need to keep the purchase services?
That is the test, and I would say yes. Okay, I'm not sure that it has to be $400, but Dawn let us. So 2 years ago, 262. We're revitalizing the program. We're probably going to test a lot of kids, so we might want to stick with the 400.
Particularly if you, there will be a fair amount of publicity about this, a lot
Right.
of kids as
A
a
lot.
result, will
Yeah.
be taken, encouraged by their parents.
Okay, and we need, 126, we'll keep that? Or we won't need that?
The PD, yeah.
I think we should
No,
have it.
they should go to the top.
The notes underneath supplies that change. Yes.
Yeah, that's very specific notes.
Yes.
Let me just,
Just think of them as placeholder for.
Well, should we put field trips
I think-
in field trips? I mean, we, in the field trips line, just,
Specific for this program.
I mean, if we go on an art field trip, we would take that out of the field trip line as a few pages back. Just saying, we could pull it out of there, put it into a different spot, but
if it is a GT field trip, it shouldn't go there.
it should.
Yeah, I mean, art's regular instruction, so even though it's a specific content area.
So maybe for interested,
And
why not open it up to other kids, not just the GT?
Well, So that's definitely something we have to talk about, and now's
Yes,
not the time, but
definitely.
when we start talking about
That's
opening
why I'm
all
not
this
worried
stuff
about
up to
what you're
kids who
doing.
aren't identified, then
No,
what's the
we're in
point
trouble.
of being identified?
Right.
We're in trouble.
Yeah.
Because presumably whatever the field trip is wouldn't be appropriate for other kids, it wouldn't be at their level.
I don't think that's,
Yeah.
Well, I guess I feel like in the notes, we should leave field trips in there because I'm hoping that that will encourage, you know, I think it should be opened up to the other union GT programs as well as ours. So if we leave it specifically, I think that targets the possibility that it will be broadened to other GT programs in the area. Similar to what they're doing now.
Sometimes when you're really, you know, differentiating around a particular kid's need, a field trip might be getting one child transported to the workshop of, you know, say an artist or to somewhere like Jackson Lab or something like that, you know, so it's not necessarily a group field trip every time. Okay, anything else, GT?
Can I ask about the process for the budget? When might this budget undergo scrutiny and maybe get put on the chopping block?
Within the next month.
Okay, so at any of the next budget meetings that can happen? Okay.
What we usually do, Chrissy, is go through line by line, especially when we come up with a final tentative figure, which is pretty much what we're doing now. And we have several other meetings. I think our last one is February 10th.
I think it's an executive session.
And then March 9th is our next regular. But that's what we have set up for special meetings.
Probably next meeting, things start at 2.
Yeah, we're hoping that we can get through tonight and add what we wish to have.
Right. Right.
Where were you relative to last year's budget right now?
Pardon me?
Where were you relative to last year's budget to this year's budget? What you guys are proposing?
Yeah, it's really difficult to tell because there's so many changes.
Oh, okay, so you're, okay.
Our first version was up, what, 2.3% about, but it really means nothing.
Yeah.
Because we're negotiating contracts, we're doing other things that will make a big difference. So,
Thank you very much.
thank you. Okay, so, and just a reminder on page 10, we've taken the contingency, put the contingency at the end of the regular instruction budget. The regular instruction, sorry. Correct?
Yeah, it should be there.
I don't see a contingency.
Yeah, I don't either. But maybe I just missed it.
Yeah, line 114.
Contract
Yeah.
for teachers, what is the inflation number there?
I'm sorry, say it again. I was trying to listen to
Teacher
them.
contract, the number that we have there.
I think it's 2.5. No, well,
I can't remember.
I
meant to
yeah,
look it
I
up.
think it's about 2. I just got an email from MEA, and they're on a campaign to raise retirement benefits by 5.4 because that's their inflation number for last year.
Yeah, well,
So, yes, I'm sorry, I have it written here, line 114, and I didn't even read
Yeah,
it.
I'm sure why it's up there.
Yeah. It just,
Yeah, that's
Popped in.
17,000.
yes. And I want us to talk about if that's enough. And the reason I say that is because we always, for years and years and years, we had 20,000 in there. And then when we decided that we would cut back, we cut back to 17, and that was several years ago. So, and we may absolutely not be able to do it because we have so many other things, but I just want us to think about that down the road, that we have 5% of that entire cost center that can be moved, and I just wonder if 20 is a better number than 17.
Oh, let's pop it, we need to drop it.
Okay,
So line 114,
line 114.
changing to 20.
So,
Fast
we on to
forward
page
11.
11? I don't have anything on 11. Does anyone else? Hearing nothing. Page 12? I don't have anything on page 12.
Let me, sorry, on page 11, the other thing I have is I circled the, 129, private salary is 3.15% a realistic number.
That's from the.
It's from
that's
the on contract. So she might have moved over, or I don't know.
Same for librarians,
Well, I guess you could look it up on the contract, but I know that's where we're intending to take the numbers from.
yeah.
Okay. The only thing I'd like to point out on page 12 is that we know that technology services and things like that, workers' comp and all that stuff, we're negotiating, so that will go up.
Jan, is line 158 a year round? Yeah, I just am wondering,
Where did it come from?
I thought
It was
once,
somewhere else.
I thought Luke was a year-round employee.
What line number,
think
please?
So he,
158, first line of technology.
anyway, we should just check that, because then that next line would be redundant.
Oh. And maybe if,
That's the summer one.
no,
Isn't it?
she's saying he thinks he's year-round, so we would not have
Oh,
a
I see.
separate line for
Okay, yes,
summer work.
got it, right.
But,
Don't get
yeah,
your hopes up, but, just
Well,
saying, yeah.
but,
But it's an exciting
It
book.
is year round, I just checked that the,
because I was gonna say you did, I
Yeah.
think you did his contract.
And does line 158, does that reflect year-round, or is that based on school year?
year round.
That's for year.
So the 26.4 is 30 hours a week year-round, is that correct?
Yes.
30?
30, no.
20?
20, sorry.
He's, Luke is 30.
Is it 30?
That's, I was gonna
30
say,
per
I thought
hour.
it was
30 per
30
hour.
per hour
But
times
how many
20
hours a week? Yeah. 20 hours a week.
No, that's Kathy, you know what it is? It's divided up
Yes.
between the regular school year and the summer. Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you
If
said.
it- Well, if you work 50 weeks,
Right.
it's $600 a week. So that would be 30 grand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
So I think it's divided between school year maybe and.
we need to add the summer technology number into his regular work.
Okay, so it's separated.
I think you've got the
I
school, the
think
first
that's
line
the
is school
difference.
year.
Yeah,
and
that's
second
what I
is
was
summer.
asking, but not very well
Yes,
here.
that's all right. But we got there. So that's
Okay.
So are we gonna ask her to just combine those?
We're gonna figure out. what we're going
158.
for.
I'm just gonna double check her calculations. Is that $30 an hour, 20 hours a week times 52?
Yeah, so 31,
31,
200.
2,
Yeah, so it's
which is about what that,
Yeah,
about.
it's a little bit. That's good.
Anything else on page 12?
Page 13. We decided on 126, we were adding the intercom and the 3D printers because that's part of what we decided to do before.
Where were the 164, 165 and 166 before this year? You know?
Under regular instruction, I think.
Because it's just,
And now we know they shouldn't.
I just wondered how the numbers compare. I always check to see how the numbers compare. Just out of curiosity. And when we do that, we've got nothing for comparison.
Well, yeah, you look under regular instruction in last year's budget.
Right. But it was just for a beginner, if you just had an asterisk and footnote or something like that on that page. Oh. Instead of zeros.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, I know.
What are we adding,
That's-
3D printers and what?
Intercom. Also on cost center 11, DOE calls it school administration rather than office of principal services. I'd like to see it say that. If we're not suggesting that Shelley spends everything.
It's very expensive now.
When do 167 and 168 get spent? Because we don't seem to spend any of them.
Always at the end.
Oh, at the end.
At the
Yeah,
end.
they get paid out in June. Or May.
They have to do all the work before they can get paid. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I see that we've changed it at the end of the cost center. So it says total school administration, which is. Anything else on page 13? Page 14? On line 187, we know that that could change because we don't know what the usage is. And is that one of the ones we were going to look into a new lease? I thought it was that and 189.
The copiers, we talked about keeping them and just purchasing a service agreement. We agreed they were in decent enough shape, let's use them for a year, so.
Okay,
So
so
we weren't looking at a new lease, just.
Is it realistic? I mean, it seems to me like every year for the last 25 years or so that I've been doing this, copier services, the line we always run over. I mean, according to the, is that just the lease that goes in there, or is that the usage?
in 187, it's based on the prior year's usage. So we've actually spent 8173.22 this year, but we don't know what the usage was. And if we look at
2021 was 11.8.
right,
And that was with the budget, we thought we're probably using the same period of 84. And then, so.
That was the spring of 20 was,
Packets.
Enough said.
Go
that
for
would've
it.
been-
All you have to say is
Is
spring
that
of
right?
20.
Well, that's spring of 21.
Yeah, but
yeah, I was gonna say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was, that was the year before. But Ben, you're right, we always seem to run over.
we always run over.
And
And we always mutter about what we're going to do about it, and the price of fixing it is always greater in irritation and ticking teachers off than it's worth.
So bump it up to 85,
No,
higher?
I mean, I just, everything is costing more, I just, this is my guess. Listen, I got 10,000 as an underestimate.
10,000 makes sense to me.
So, Reg, I know you said when you were talking to Candace and me that you had decided to keep these and go one more year, but would we still pay another year's lease fee? Or would we would just keep them and then do
Yeah,
an agreement?
Yeah, so we would own them. It
Yeah.
would just be whatever their service agreement.
Right, and I guess that's what Candace and I were questioning. Would it be cheaper to go through another lease rather than
Service
just
agreement.
postponing it and with the service agreement?
It'd be interesting to know what these cost alternatives,
Well, that's what, I think that's what Candace and I were asking.
yeah, MGL.
We're gonna find that out. We'll call and get some estimates on that. And
Yeah.
So I don't have that figure.
Okay, so that's line 187 and 189, right? So that's one of the
Yeah.
leases up to. And also, Reg, you did a great job of explaining line 188, and I think the board should hear it because it's only 1 year, I believe, that cost would be in there.
Yeah, so 188 is the cost of moving so right now our financial software does all the bookkeeping for the buildings, the district, and the union is locally hosted. So the server for all of our financial records going back 10 years, 15 years, they reside on a server in the central office. It's backed up, however, it's just not a secure way to go. If anything happened to that server, we really wouldn't be able to get that information back. So this is the cost of hosting it on the web hosting with the company that we use for the financial software. ADS is the name of the company, the Tyler Technology. So it's included in the local budget. Each town is including it in their local budget, prorated what the cost is. And next year that should shift to the superintendent's office budget. So it would have been in there, so it didn't happen until after the office budget was approved back in December. So anyway, yeah, so that's that cost. It's about $250 a month, roughly.
Thank you. I had a question on line 192, just basically why the supplies are up by 1,000.
Because of the printers actually, so now they're charging us for things that they weren't charging us for before, and I don't know that it's something, I know we can't get out of it because Loretta, she tried to fight with them, but I think they're charging us shipping and all of that stuff, so it's costing us more essentially to run the copiers. She felt like it was probably about $1,000 a year.
Another reason to look into
So-
leases.
Yeah.
So that's copies, supplies. That's kind of in addition to 187, 189.
Yeah.
But were they not charging us for toner?
That's there's something
Yeah.
that they were charging us.
Yeah.
So
And now
it's
they
toner. A lot of it is toner for all of the printers that we have here.
And on cost center 12, we were gonna change that, I think, to facilities maintenance. I didn't look to see if it was changed at the end. Yeah. Yes, it has been, so it isn't changed at the beginning. Page 15, anything there? again, we're negotiating salaries, so that will change. Page 16. Under the notes for grounds maintenance, ball field, we added $1,000 to that because we took it from somewhere else. Do you remember where? Maybe she might remember. Last time we added it here because we needed it.
I'm sorry, which one are you looking at?
I'm looking under notes, grounds maintenance, ball field, groundskeeping, walking path. It was 5,000, but we added 6,000 because we took it from somewhere else where we didn't need the funds.
Yes. What they continue.
And Shelley, do you want to talk about line 212?
Sure. Grab my notes. So our building committee met to review the capital needs assessment, and we've got it narrowed down to the projects that we want to put into the budget, and we're working on getting the prices for several of those. Right now, there are some things that Doug has identified as things that he can fix that will definitely save us money. So that's sort of the theme of one of our meetings, was that he could do a lot of the work that will save us some money. So materials and paint we will be increasing. I'm not going to tell you any new numbers right now, so because I don't know it yet. But he'll be able to. I think today we talked about, so there's 1,000, 1,200. So probably another materials and paint will probably be around 3,000, I think, based on some of those other projects that he was looking at today. I think keeping miscellaneous repairs makes sense there. We're going to be looking at replacing some of the carpet, and we'll do that instead of replacing all of the carpet in the school. Take it sort of room by room, and we're going to get a price on the office space and Kat's classroom for this budget. There's some lighting, outside mounted fixtures that Doug's able to do himself, and we're going to do some of those, not all of it. We are going to be looking into the roofing. That is something that they identified as a need in particular, where we feel over the gym, but also over the addition. So that's, well, you know what the addition is, but the cafeteria and both of these wings. So we're going to get a price on each of those pieces. And we'll get back to you on that as well. And let's see, and we also today are going with the CES recommendation for a feasibility study for the boiler system and the ventilation system. And so what we would put in the budget is the cost for the feasibility study. So we'll be getting those numbers hopefully in the next week, and the next round, but that's kind of a summary of what we discussed today.
And Kurt is one of the engineers who worked on our project when we were doing renovations, and he'll be doing the estimate for the feasibility study, so he kind of knows the building, and I think he'll do a good job for us. And Pete says he'll have that in a week. We'll hold him to it.
213.
Yes.
What happened to property and casualty insurance? Usually it's somewhat predictable. That is a huge increase. For last year or two.
Is it because of building supplies?
Property and casualty insurance?
This is the insurance for the building.
Yeah, property insurance is going up because building supplies are going up.
That would be I don't know, I'm asking.
Yeah.
I just.
Well, most of the increase was from FY '21 to FY '22.
Well, yeah,
And then,
Yeah.
what I'm doing is sort of asking retrospectively, what the heck happened? And are they gonna, is it likely to happen again? I don't know, obviously none of us foresaw it last year.
I don't know how we figured that out. added 1,000.
Well, I just was gonna suggest calling up the people who do our insurance and say, hey, we're curious why it went up so much last year, and, what are you looking at for this year?
If I had to hazard a guess, I would say last year was because building supplies cost so much more, so a claim would cost the insurance company more, but that it might not go up very much at all for next year then, because that
That would be great,
That
I
jump
was kinda like
It
to
would be nice to have that.
in prices has already happened and leveled,
Right.
so.
How much of a hassle is that for you?
Should be easy.
Okay, thanks.
I call them up, but I don't think they respond to me right.
Well, they might, but.
Yeah, they might, but it wouldn't be very helpful.
Chan, I think that $1,000 you were just talking about
Mhm.
was because we lowered the, substitute days to 15 days.
Right, yes,
And then we took out from 15 students to 10 students.
yes, you're right,
Nice one.
thank you. Okay, anything else on page 16? Page 17. We added debt service in line 220, I'm just thinking, should it say principal on loan, because it's bonds or notes, I know that's the general term, but ours is a loan, and it's year 5 and 15 from Bar Harbor Banking and Trust, which might be nice to put on here. And then, so that would mean in 221, we'd say interest on loan, 2.49%. So I believe that's what it is.
A lot better than on our school bus.
Pardon me? Oh, it's a lot better than on, okay.
The 2.49.
Okay, I knew I saw this somewhere. On line 22, there's a
There it is.
vacancy for MA step 5. There it is, 46,654. So vacancy 2 adults. It says 88,65, but no, that's what it's up. Yes. I think it's a little more than that because I think the whole family is close to 20. So I would think 2 adults would be closer to that than 8, but.
Question on that, I think we talked about it before, on 223 is, I think the number that we see over here in the budget total is the net number, which, you know, after you subtract local entitlement from the cost of the person type thing or whatever.
Yeah, we've decided how we were gonna fix that,
Yeah, okay, just,
right?
yeah, I hope so.
Well, in another place. we
Yeah.
did.
But I was just pointing out it's here again.
Yeah, I want, is that saying like for Carolyn, is that paid for by local entitlement? That's what I think. So it should say 0, and then her salary, local, and paid by local entitlement.
It's not just one.
No, I know it's not, but that was the first
Oh,
example. I just meant all of them, that's what we decided to do. With all, so there'd be 2 in that list.
Does it feel strange that we've identified that, the last one spoke, or the last one went to the student and next one? It just feels specific.
This doesn't spell out the name.
It wouldn't be specific to me, but it would be to you.
On 224, we had voted for sub pay to go up to, what was it, 105?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just thinking about the sub pay, if we hire a full-time sub, is this line item would go up?
If we hire one for next year. Yes, it would. but I don't know that we've really talked about one for next year. We're trying to get one for this year. I don't know how that's going.
I one applicant, we're just waiting for fingerprinting.
So do
That's how it's going.
planning ahead, do we wanna keep them? Or is that funding from?
From ESSER?
Right.
I think it would be for this year, right?
I think we're just using the sub line, because we haven't spent it, so.
Okay.
Yeah, so that would be $525 a week. It would be $525 a week. That we'd be paying for this year.
Plus benefits.
No.
Benefits. Okay.
It looks like on 224, 105 was the number used, because it's 100 days at 105.
Right, yeah. Just didn't change.
Oh,
So it's just, yeah, so it's really more of a
Just
typo.
in fine print.
Yep, there you go. Phew.
Every little bit helps.
That's right, saved us.
Nice go, good save.
Thank you.
Okay, anything on page 18? Anything I had is line 245, we just need to know that those are not correct figures yet. We don't know for sure what they will be for surcharge.
When do they usually tell you?
Like how many, later in the
What the
spring.
surcharge is? Just have to guess.
It is an estimate.
You've got on 247 another net number.
Except that is, it can't be because it's only $1,000.
Yes, so that's
So
why
it would have been,
it's a net number.
okay,
It has to be a net number, because
so,
it probably started out as 3,000.
so what do you think it should say?
Well,
What should the note say?
I don't know, I mean, I would put 3,000 in the budget with an asterisk next to it, and then in the footnote say, actual cost to town 1,000.
Okay,
Payment for
but
closing
that's
that.
the opposite of what we're doing with everything else.
Yeah, I know, it's just,
Because
it depends what you wanna, I mean, if you're just showing what it costs the town, that's fine. If you actually wanna see what the total cost is, and then break out later who pays for what, that's the other way to do it. You know,
Isn't this a spreadsheet though, where it needs, so in order for us to tell the town what it is going to cost, I would think you could only put the net in that
Yeah, but you could
column.
Make it match the other ones.
Program.
Yeah, whatever, as long as,
So
Two
it's-
thousand
it's
plus
good.
8,000 grants.
yeah,
2,000 is shown in the budget.
as long as it's consistent,
Yeah.
you can work with it.
So the way it's written is consistent with how we do.
Yeah, we'll just change, we'll just change the note to say $1,000 plus 2,000 from grant.
So Matt's working on this.
What was that?
This isn't an updated budget though, because Matt hasn't done this part yet. We haven't
Special
done
ed.
that budget yet.
Oh, we've updated wages and
Okay.
that stuff, so.
I mean,
Page 19.
well, so on
Sorry,
248, I
Oh,
think
sorry.
there's, I mean, I don't wanna, we don't need to be paying for the Kurzweil anymore. I mean, we didn't use that. Karen wanted us to, and we didn't, so I think that can be cut.
So we haven't, Blue Hill hasn't?
Correct.
Okay. But the rest of the union is?
I don't think that's accurate.
Okay. No, I was a question.
I know.
So maybe that's a question for Matt.
Yeah, we'll look at it. I mean, we've already spent 1,500 in that line. We budgeted 1,698.
Right.
So,
So it's going for something.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, I think we're paying for it.
Just not using
No, we're not using it.
I see.
Sorry about that, yes, there is a difference there.
Ken, did you?
Were we taking out 244? I had a note that we were. Because then at 245 it goes into,
Yeah, but we can't because it has to do the natural progression, isn't that correct? That it's, we did budget 2 years before, so next year it will fall off.
Next year falls off, okay, so for the national credit.
Yeah.
You want that out of your face, huh?
Page 19. I don't have anything on that one. Page 20. I don't have anything on that either, and that's another change in cost center allocations. Now we have summer school.
Yeah.
Co-curricular stipends underneath here. But it's not, they haven't really changed.
Wait, what's 281?
280 summer school.
Sounds good. I circled that, because you should be spending an awful lot of,
I think that we.
on transportation.
With ESSER. That's part of our summer school, unless this is to a private place.
I think this is when she broke it down, when we had the 8,000.
Oh.
Yes.
We split it.
That's right.
Split it, but I think
But it's not summer
it
school.
shouldn't have been in this category.
Right.
It should have, yeah.
It should just be under
Field trips?
field trips. Or,
Right.
yeah,
Summer school should probably recognize.
right. Page 21. Anything on page 21?
Can we get something from Kyle for, like, what's the rotation for uniforms?
He's got all that.
Okay.
He's coming on. He's coming next Monday, so I'll tell him from there.
Okay. Page 22. I have a note that the kitchen budget is not complete.
It is now.
It is now.
I can tell you, sorry, just wanna not forget this, so.
Sorry, backing up one more.
Oh.
Back to 21, 288. Were we gonna remove the clinics? Have we talked about that?
Good question. Basketball clinic?
Yeah, there was basketball, soccer, baseball, softball. Just because the Blue Ball Rock is so active now. But we were talking about fifth grade, what we had for fifth grade.
Yeah, this is a hard call, and actually Andrew Chung and I were just talking today in general about maybe we should come to the board of end of season report and talk about some of the pros and cons. From, I think, different people's perspectives, although that's not a copy for this budget. I would have a hard time taking it out, mostly because of the fifth graders. It's their landing spot if they don't get on a team, essentially. I feel like pre-pandemic we were better at running these clinics and scheduling them and having them, but we really just focused on getting kids who were on teams that would actually play games practice time. I can't, unless we had our teams practicing until 9 o'clock at night, I don't quite know where we would do the basketball clinic, but we always managed to fit in soccer. I mean, soccer and like baseball, softball isn't hard to schedule time for. It's the basketball that's hard to schedule time for.
So were these the 3, 5?
Yeah, and then the other piece is you do have to pay to be a part of the town rec, and it's a weekend requirement versus these we're providing as part of their public education, I guess. I don't know. I go back and forth about it, honestly. And some years, nobody wants to do it. We have 2 kids, so we end up canceling it. But other years, we've had 20.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, see you next time.
We almost got through it.
I said,
We'll
quitter.
just call everybody out there.
He's on fire
Now
tonight.
you see why we moved him down to that end.
I'm surprised it didn't happen before.
You're supposed to give him an elbow, kind of.
Kick him under the table.
I would say leave the soccer
Leave?
clinics for
Okay.
now, because I think there's just too many questions about who and
My
what.
rationale was moving it into equipment for more uniforms.
I will tell you that I just saw tonight a shirt that Rachel and Jess are making for girls basketball in the Fab Lab. They're awesome.
Oh, our warm-ups?
Warm-ups.
Okay, cool.
So we're working on it. So do you want to just leave it as is? So Shelley, go back to the kitchen, I think.
Okay. So what the recommendations are, I don't know, people who kind of give Tim recommendations, is that you increase the food numbers by about 7%. I guess that makes sense, right? So,
Yeah, it makes sense if that's, yes.
Like line 310.
right, so now I've got to go from our old budget to our new. So if we start with training and professional development, where's that? Okay, so 306. Okay, so that number can stay the same. The repair and maintenance number can stay the same. The travel can stay the same, the propane. And then we get to food for lunch, and I would recommend that we increase that to 55,150, which is 7%, rounded to a neat number. So 55,150. The lunch supplies, I think we need to leave $4,000, but take the note away, and I'm gonna tell you why. So we are not using, we are, but next year, hopefully, we won't be using the disposable lunch boxes certainly as much. But the supplies are going up by more than 7%. So he gave an example of simply buying a box of gloves, right, for serving, which they have to use for every lunch or even more serving, went from like 25 a case to over $100 a case. So I mean, it is a huge difference, and we're spending right now about $700 a month in supplies, and some of that does include the disposable lunch boxes, but we kind of stocked up on those ahead of time. So I feel like $4,000 is a good number based on what I talked about with him today. And he'll be here sometime, so he knows he's probably going to talk to you a little bit more about that. But that feels like a good number to us. Let's see, where are we? Lunch equipment. He would like to add in lunch equipment to the Titan meal planning. There's another little piece of it that he wants to have, which he'll talk to you about when he comes. That would just be another $250, so it would be $1,000 for the Titan meal planning note. And so that line would be 2,000 instead of 1,750. We can leave the number. Am I going too fast? Okay. We can leave the miscellaneous number, and then food for breakfast, 7%, and then rounded neatly is 5,620. And then breakfast supplies is so weird. Do you see that trend? It's so weird. So 7% is like 285. I wrote down 300. I wrote $15, so whatever you want to do. But I think 300 seems like reasonable. And that is all.
Anybody, anything else on 22? 23, line 16 is just says total for food service. It should say total all other expenditures. that cost center is called all other expenditures. So it should say total all other expenditures. And I've been told, Reg, that you have the explanation for why we don't have any reserve accounts in this budget.
Oh, on the last page?
Yes.
Or just what would be page 25. So the way that this software shows reserve accounts is just, it's not clear. It's hard to read like how much is actually in the reserve account. Basically, this is the software we use for just, income and expenses, and so it does not do a great job on our savings accounts. So the most up-to-date kind of reserve funds are listed in the audit, the FY21 audit, and then any changes that we made to them for this year. So that's why there's no last page listing of the reserve funds. You know what? But there is on version 1.
This is from version 1, so
Yeah.
so why is, I thought this was pretty clear, but you're saying it's not.
Actually, that's this year, sorry, that's not right now. Just your,
I'll get it.
my current budget.
Yeah, Blue Hills looks easier to read than some of the other schools. I think it was probably another school that was just looking at, it was hard to tell how much was deposited into, say, the boiler reserve fund. You can read this one a little easier. So maybe for Blue Hill, we can include this sheet. But a couple other schools are just looking at that last page, kind of the reserve accounts. And
Yeah.
spend
I
way
just
more
think-
time trying to figure out, well, what happened to the 5,000 that we said we put in there last year? We're doing the audit to find out, oh, it was listed differently. So
I just
This is a
think
little more
it
plain.
looks, the optics of having a page there for people to see.
yeah.
This is what we're doing, is good if we can.
It was just kind of a blanket. Let's not include that page because it's more confusing, but I think for Blue Hill, it's a little easier to understand.
So, for reserve accounts, I think probably should wait for version 3 to decide, and we'll have something from Pete too that will, maybe we'll have some better numbers of what we want to add to the reserve accounts. Does that make sense?
Reg, on the copy that you have, is it, did we change the capital improvement reserve to unanticipated capital repair?
No, it just says capital improvement.
Okay.
And I don't think we should say unanticipated, because we are anticipating that we'll need to do the roof and the boiler and all those things.
Oh, okay, I thought that's what we were recommended to do.
All right, so we have gone through budget, yay, for the first time. And our next item is going into executive session to discuss teacher contract. Can I have a motion? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Anything else out of the executive session, is that, no,
Sorry?
out of the executive session, is it, you guys
There
got?
might be, but I don't think so.
I'm ready to vote on that.
Alright, well, you guys have a good evening.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all. How do we get on the budget committee? 'Cause I like numbers and fun stuff like that.
Talk to John Richardson.
This budget committee, or is it
School board.
school? Oh, it's only school board does this budget? I didn't know there was a budget committee for the
John
school.
Richardson and the lady who was with him are on the budget committee.
Okay.
For the
So,
town.
for the town, and they come to